All right, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Sam Dunaiski. I'm the Distributed Renewable Energy Program Director here at Renew Wisconsin. I'm honored to be moderating today's panel, The Renewable Energy Workforce and Economic Engine in Wisconsin. The summit and our panel discussions would not be possible certainly without the generous support of our sponsors. And at this time, I would like to thank Alliant Energy for sponsoring this panel. And with that said, at this point, I'd like to turn it over to David DeLeon to talk more about Alliant Energy. David, the floor is all yours.
All right, thank you, Sam. Can you hear me okay? Great. Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm David DeLeon. I'm president of Alliant Energy's Wisconsin utility. And Alliant Energy is very pleased to be a sponsor of Renew Wisconsin 2021 Renewable Energy Summit and of this afternoon's breakout session. So we appreciate the partnership we have had with Renew for years and appreciate having this conference virtually. I know this is a challenge in some cases, but it allows the opportunity to bring in folks together to discuss and learn on topics that are of interest to all of us and to the state. So the renewable energy workforce is definitely making a significant impact on the state's economy, and it will continue to grow into the future. So as you all might, some of you might have heard that Alliant Energy has plans on advancing a clean energy future and adding more renewable energy jobs in Wisconsin as part of our clean energy blueprint. So we're guided by our purpose-driven strategy to support customers and build strong communities. So our blueprint is our roadmap to add up to 1,000 megawatts of solar in Wisconsin, and that will power hundreds of thousands of homes. So you might have seen some of that information in our recent announcements. So just this week, we announced plans for acquiring a solar project in Dodge County, and we expect to announce more projects in the near future. Last month, we announced our first Wisconsin community solar and customer hosted project near Fond du Lac. We're really excited about that. And that project will be completed by the end of this year. And in November, we were also part of a joint announcement with Dane County to partner with them on a solar project near Madison, actually just outside of Madison near the Dane County landfill. So, and earlier in 2020, we announced solar projects in Grant, Greene, Sheboygan, Wood, Jefferson, Rock, and Richland counties. And collectively, these projects are expected to create approximately 1,200, at least 1,200 local construction jobs. And once it's operational, they will provide an estimated $80 million in local tax revenues over the next 30 years. Those are for the projects we announced in earlier 2020, and we have those additional projects that we are working on right now. So to enhance the reliability of solar generation, we're also exploring the use of battery storage. And we've done some pilots already, installed some pilots, and we are looking at actually adding some additional battery storage. And storing that excess power generated when the sun is most powerful and releasing it as needed is really important for us as we think about reliability of the system. So we're looking at ways for converting to cleaner fuels and creating programs where customers can take advantage of technology to conserve energy or transition to complete reliance on renewable energy. So these are just a few highlights of where our roadmap will take us regarding renewable energy and clean energy technologies. So as we and other businesses invest in more renewable energy, battery storage, and emerging energy technologies, the Wisconsin economy, including rural communities, which we serve a number of them, will benefit. And it creates the need for training workers and finding innovative ways to deliver that training. Over the years, Alliant Energy has supported student scholarships in energy and institutions that deliver energy education. And last year, we added a pre-apprentice program that allows employees to earn as you learn progressive wages. So we get them prepared to go into our apprentice programs, and then we train them to go through the full apprenticeship. So this is an initiative that was designed to create entry-level positions and attract more women and underrepresented individuals with an interest in working in energy. Some perhaps with little education or experience. So this new program includes on-the-job classroom learning opportunities and we'll prepare them, like I said, to enter into our full apprentice programs. We will continue to work with the schools, though, and organizations, communities, and others to provide opportunities for those who are interested in working in the energy business. And it includes doing more to attract diverse workforce into the renewable energy field. So I'm pretty excited about this because I'm actually quite involved with this with our organization. And we, like I said, we will continue to increase our focus in this area. So I believe these are topics that will be explored and discussed by the panelists during the breakout session today. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to just introduce a little bit about what Alliant Energy is doing. And I'll turn it over to Sam so we can get on with the panelists. So thank you.
Great, thank you, David. That's really great news to hear from Alliant Energy. The work you guys are doing is really impressive and really great. So thank you for that. And thank you for everyone else for joining us today. During today's discussion, feel free to use the chat box that should be at the bottom of your screen. And if you want to engage with either the panelists or the other summit attendees, you can also ask questions of the panelists in the chat or the Q&A box. And exciting news, you can actually vote on questions as you see them come in. We've done a lot of voting in the last few weeks, so let's continue voting. So if you see a question that you like, make sure to upvote that. And you can put the questions in at any time. We're going to save some about 15 minutes, hopefully at the end, for discussion and from questions from the audience. We have a really great and knowledgeable set of panelists here with us today. I'm so excited for this. First, I'd like to introduce Ellen Barlas. Ellen is the Solar Workforce Manager at Midwest Renewable Energy Association. She manages MREA's Solar Ready Wisconsin program, which connects technical college students with resources to complete internships and with solar contractors across the Midwest. Ellen, please tell us a little bit more about what you do and how it relates to our renewable energy workforce.
Thanks, Sam. As you said, I'm the Solar Workforce Manager for the Midwest Renewable Energy Association. And we initiated this project back in June of 2019. So we're about a year and a half into it. We started with 4 technical college partners in Wisconsin, and this year we've expanded into Illinois and Iowa. Super exciting opportunity to get students from technical and community colleges all over the Midwest, basically up on roofs and into work experiences while they're getting training in solar. It's been an awesome progression of making partners with these colleges and with the students and kind of making a pathway to work.
Great, thanks, Ellen. That's really, really exciting news to hear, and so excited to listen and hear you talk more. Next up, we have Gilbert Campbell. Gilbert is the co-founder and the CEO of Volt Energy, a national renewable energy firm that finances and develops solar projects and energy storage solutions. Gilbert also serves on the board of directors at the Solar Energy Industries Association, the American Association of Blacks in Energy, is an advisory board member at 3 Degrees, and is a founding member of Renewables Forward. Gilbert, thanks for being here. Would you mind telling us a little bit more about Volt Energy and the kind of folks you work with and you hire?
Sure, absolutely. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm honored to be part of this panel. Thank you to Alliant Energy for sponsoring and for New Wisconsin for the invitation. So as Sam mentioned, my name is Gilbert Campbell. I co-founded a company and run called Volt Energy. We're based in Washington, D.C., but we're nationwide. We're solar developers. So we, our primary service offering is a power purchase agreement for big companies, universities, nonprofits, et cetera. So some of our clients include the Cheesecake Factory, which most people probably know. We put solar and energy storage at their corporate headquarters in Calabasas, California. We've also done work in Colorado for Subaru. Here in Washington, D.C., we put solar on City Hall. And we work a lot with our local utility company, Pepco Holdings. And then a project we're working on right now, which is near and dear to my heart, is at Howard University, where I went to undergraduate school. And my passion really lies in helping to diversify the renewable energy sector. And also, any chance I get to work with young people just to let them know all the different opportunities that this exciting sector offers. So definitely looking forward to this panel conversation this afternoon. Thank you.
Great, thanks Gilbert so much for being here. And last but not least, we have William McMahon. William is an engineer with the City of Madison's Engineering Division. He works on facilities projects and with the city's Green Power program, which is a program, where trainees with little to no electrical skills are provided on-the-job training with solar installations on city buildings. William, would you explain to our audience a little bit more about you do with the city and maybe specifically more about what the Green Power program is all about?
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is William McMahon. I'm an engineer with the City of Madison, and I work in the facilities management section on building improvement and sustainability projects. And for the past 5 years, I've been heavily involved in the city's Green Power program, which, as Sam said, we take people with no prior electrical experience and they learn to install solar arrays over the course of a summer program, well, like 9 months. The program helps position trainee for a potential career in the trades as they gain on-the-job experience installing PV systems on city buildings. They're instructed by city master and journeyman electricians, and they're involved in every step of the PV installation. I help the team by designing the systems and managing the permitting paperwork and purchasing materials. The city has a goal of being 100% renewable and zero net carbon emissions by 2030. Well, we're working towards that through a variety of ways, purchasing renewable energy credits, energy efficiency programs, the MGE's Renewable Energy Rider program, and then also PV projects installed on city buildings through Public Works and the Green Power program. Last year, we hit a milestone of 1 megawatt installed on city buildings, with roughly 80% of that having been installed by our Green Power crew. That 1 megawatt was split between 27 buildings and it supplies about 2.5% of the city's total electrical use. This year, the Green Power team is going to be installing another 200 kilowatt of solar, and Public Works contracts with other developers will be doing 280 kilowatts further. And those numbers will keep increasing in the coming years. The city continues to invest in solar with the goal of installing another 9 megawatt by 2030 to help with our net zero goal.
Great, thanks, William. That's really, really great information to have. As you can see, we have a very qualified set of panelists with us today. And I'd like to start off our discussion by asking all of our panelists, and we've all had our lives turned upside down quite a bit here in the last year, but I wanted to get a sense a little bit of how the coronavirus pandemic has been changing work in your sector. And I want to stick with you, William. You work in the public sector. As we all know, public sector work has to continue on, pandemic or no. So I'm just kind of wondering if you can kind of highlight some of the things that have changed, not just necessarily at the city, but with the Green Power program as well, and how you've maybe changed your approach to training people and how running that program.
Yeah, so I guess luckily we haven't had too many significant changes or delays due to the pandemic. Neither of our Green Power projects or the Public Works projects experienced any major delays. The nice thing about solar is that a lot of the work is outside and on the roof, so it makes it easy to distance the installers, and there's also a lot of fresh air, which helps. We obviously had to make changes to day-to-day operation with mask use and temperature checks when people enter the building, and then trying to limit carpooling just to limit the exposure people have to each other. We didn't really have any manufacturing delays or pricing delays, but I think that's something we'll keep an eye on for next year, because things were kind of already set in stone when the pandemic happened, because our program usually starts in March. So we kind of had everything ready to go. We had a couple little hiccups in March, but otherwise the process went well. One thing that actually kind of improved was the permitting process. Our building inspection moved a lot more stuff online, which helped us and allowed us to do stuff faster, and hopefully it'll carry on in the future. And one thing for the city is it highlighted the importance of renewables, because a lot of our buildings had less workers, but they still used a lot of energy, and it kind of highlighted the work we need to do to get to net zero. And there's some buildings that can't be empty, and those buildings increased in energy, so really highlighted.
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you talked about the moving things online and kind of expediting the permitting process. When we talk about complications due to the pandemic, we often kind of highlight on the negative, and I'm really glad you were able to kind of talk about maybe how this can present itself as an opportunity to kind of move things forward. Gilbert, I'm interested to know your take on how things have changed for you more in the private sector of the workforce.
Sure. Maybe I'll just give a global perspective as far as the solar industry first. So starting with, I think the biggest hit was with residential solar companies. Obviously, with the pandemic, people are leery with having people come to their house, doing cold calls and doing work in the beginning. For us, we're in the distributed generation side, which means pretty much everything but residential. So like corporate clients, universities, as I mentioned earlier. We were in the middle of a project when the pandemic really got bad, and we were waiting for some guidance, but found out pretty quickly that, energy is, rightfully so, is deemed essential construction. So after probably a week of, confusion, we were able to, have our teams kind of go back out safely. And as you mentioned before, they're working outdoors. I think from a macro perspective, though, where COVID has impacted solar, solar was growing at a rapid level and it will pick back up. But one of the challenges is uncertainty. So when you look at what's a big driver for a lot of solar projects is the investment tax credit, where companies invest in, a certain percentage to get a 26% tax credit. But when you're in COVID and, companies aren't making the profit that they were, previously, they have less tax liability. So as a direct result, tax equity was harder to raise in 2020. And there was also some uncertainty because it was supposed to step down from 26% to 22% in 21. So there was a rush to get projects started to kind of meet the safe harboring rule, which means you could get your project. I don't want to get too much in the weeds, but grandfather for 2020. However, with the latest round of the COVID stimulus bill, that was a rider that was put in to extend the tax credits, which will have a positive impact because as companies are rebounding, the tax equity market will have some certainty. So it's extended for 2 years. So you will see a lot more projects continue to come online. And then utility scale projects, have continued to flourish. And then what I've seen, rightfully so, like under the first few months, most corporations are really worried about making sure their employees are safe, getting in, dealing with the new normal. Once they kind of got acclimated to it, we've lived in the Zoom world. I'd say over the last third and fourth quarter of 2020, business development really picked back up as companies realized that, this is the right investment to make. And so they, are now, but, the meetings are all, business development meetings are all virtual, which isn't a bad thing either, because it helps reduce carbon emissions from flying and also reducing your cost to meet with clients. So yeah, that's just, my kind of view on how, things kind of shook out.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, from a private developer standpoint, how much has that extension of that federal ITC meant for your planning? And maybe, I don't know if it really translates to workforce and hiring and things like that, but certainly I would assume it corresponds to your project queue, right?
No, it does. And the way our business is kind of structured, so we do the financing development and we hire solar installers to build our projects for us. But without the tax credit being where it is and some uncertainty, projects that were on the borderline of penciling out that you could develop with the tax credit and having the certainty, now a lot of projects can move forward, which means the installers that we work with will be able to ramp up and hire more. And the same with our company. We're more kind of more structured with like finance, engineering, and project managers, but we support, a lot of installers, like I said, that build our projects. So yeah, so the ITC is a huge win for the solar industry and will directly benefit American workers.
That's great. That's really good news to hear. I want to turn it now to Ellen too, to talk about how things have changed, COVID related, sort of in the pre workforce stage, in the educating stage. Have you seen an uptick in more people, getting interested in renewable energy? Seeing that this is an industry that has continued on through the pandemic.
Oh yeah. The challenge going back to when this all started is that the students who had been, technical colleges are designed mainly to be hands-on learning. And the transition for not only the students, but the instructors and the administrators for all these technical and community colleges was to figure out a way to do hands-on learning in a virtual environment, and or to change schedules around to provide for social distancing in labs and classrooms. And that's still happening. You know, it was a real challenge coming into the fall. You know, we basically lost the spring semester because everybody had to turn it around on a dime. And, you know, I think that for the most part, I've just been amazed at how creative and innovative instructors and school administrators have been to make it possible for these kids to continue with their education. All that being said, you know, there was so much uncertainty back last spring about, you know, whether internships were even going to happen or whether installations that had been planned for would come to fruition. And at least in our region, meaning Wisconsin and Eastern Iowa, Northern Illinois is basically where I've been working. You know, there were more installations and more business than anybody thought. And I think that trend is just going to continue. And you know, hopefully with the vaccine and, you know, with the fact that most schools have really adapted to this and made it work, I think we're going to see a huge surge in training coming up here.
That's great. Yeah, I had been wondering about, you know, technical, you know, in trade education is such a hands-on thing. You know, as the parent of an elementary school kid, it's hard enough getting them to do, you know, the 3 R's online. I can't imagine how hard it is learning a skill or a trade online. So it's really good to hear that things have still continued to go very well in that sector. Speaking of which, you know, solar installer and wind turbine technician are 2 of the fastest growing jobs in the country. I want to shift gears a little bit and get all of your perspectives on how do we, you know, now that we've built some energy and we've kind of continued it on through the pandemic, how do we get more people interested in these types of careers, and how do we keep them interested? And when I say everyone, I mean everyone in all caps. And Ellen, I'm going to let you answer this question. How do we get that? How do we maintain this momentum?
You know, I think that the key to the whole thing is just to keep the momentum going at the training level. You know, that's what I do all day long is talk to people who work in technical college programs. And I've been so pleasantly surprised to discover that a lot of the colleges that I've contacted are just in the process of building programs for renewable energy. You know, it's amazing how many technical colleges are just starting out. And certainly there are many of them that have existing programs, you know, that are adding to them. Energy storage is the big buzzword right now. You know, I think that's going to become part of everybody's curriculum coming up here. But it's really, you know, I feel real enthusiasm coming from the training world. And I think that's the key. You know, in the MREA, we developed a website just this past fall. We rolled it out around the end of November called solarenergy.jobs. It's literally the Midwest Solar Resource Center, everything career-oriented training, you know, all kinds of opportunities. We have a job board. It's an interactive job board where solar companies can post internships and jobs, and students who are going through training can go there to, you know, look for jobs and also other resources in terms of training. And I think that's the other key is, you know, we're just going to have to get the word out there and, you know, make sure to make the 2 groups meet, the students and the contractors. And, you know, I feel like we've gone a long way in that department, but we are continuing to work on that. You know, and then the other thing is just to get the word out there in terms of media. You know, it's an exciting time. I was saying that to you, Sam, before we started the webinar. You know, with the political climate and all the things that are happening, you know, I think that the ball is rolling and we're all enthusiastic about it. And it's just a matter of keeping talking about it.
Yeah, I totally agree. William, you actually, you know, run one of these programs. How have you been able to keep people engaged and to attract a wide variety of folks to this program?
Yeah, so we recently closed applications for our program for this coming year, and we had 122 applicants, which was great. That's been consistent with past years. So it really hasn't been a problem for us to get people interested in renewable energy. It has good PR. Everyone likes solar and wind and hearing about them. So just kind of keeping that going forward. And then we try and do public outreach when we complete projects, whether it's just like city internal or getting to like news stations, get people excited about it. And then helping people realize that there's careers, that it's a good career and it's a long-term career in renewable energy. It's not like a boom industry or anything. I mean, it's ramping up, but it's going to stay ramped up because even if say the city gets to net zero, we're still going to have maintenance and replacement of inverters and stuff like that in our systems. And I guess from the city's perspective, the interest level has been consistent. I don't see that going down. And I think, yeah, like Ellen was talking about, making sure that the training meets the demand of contractors is going to be the most important part going forward.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, it's good to know that you've been continuing to get so many people that have been interested in the program, and I certainly hope you guys continue to get those kind of numbers and hopefully even grow them as well. Gilbert, I want to give you a chance to answer this question as well. How do we attract people from all walks of life to these types of jobs? I only live in this small part of Wisconsin here, but I feel like I see the same kind of people at these jobs, and I just want to know like what we can do to attract anyone and everyone to this industry.
Sure. Well, I first want to say that the work that Ellen and William is doing is tremendous, because it's building up the backbone of our solar workforce, which are installers and O&M providers. But part of it, is solar jobs are just like any other company. So for example, solar companies need people in business development. We work with graphic designers, people that help us with social media, finance, legal, project managers. So there's so many different jobs that go along with solar outside of installation, which is extremely important. But I spend a lot of time just primarily with college students and high school students. With Renewables Forward, how that kind of kicked off, it was a group of CEOs that we came together and said, how can we make a difference making this industry more inclusive? So we've made commitments to, putting together best practices from hiring standpoint, but also like we're looking at creative things like doing a virtual career fair just to, share all of our various needs from employment. And I was on a panel that Cohen Resnick did probably about 2.5 months ago with 200 students of color across the country, college students. And, I posed a question to them in a poll, like how many of the students have you seen renewable energy companies at your school recruiting? And 75% of them have not seen renewable energy companies, which wasn't a surprise, but it's a newer industry. So as an industry, we're recognizing that we need a lot of people. A lot of people want to join the industry, so we have to meet them where they are. So I definitely see a wonderful opportunity as 2021 and beyond is going to be a great opportunity. And it's not just, for college educated, folks. There's a lot of different positions in solar. So, our tent is big enough to take on a lot of people, and I'm excited for what the future entails.
That's really good to hear. Yeah, I listened to a podcast a few weeks ago in which Van Jones was guest on that podcast, and he said pretty much the same thing. We have people over here that need workers. We have people over here that need jobs, and we got to find some place in the middle to connect them. And I'm really glad to see that's happening in areas across the U.S. This next one is a two-parter, and it kind of builds off of what we had been talking about in the last question. I want to know what's being done to diversify the workforce in your sector, and more importantly, to kind of piggyback on that, why is a diverse renewable energy workforce important? And I want to stay with you, Gilbert. Why are these things important? Why should we be talking about this right now at this time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first off, it's when you look at, what's morally right, the communities that have been hit hardest by the negative aspects of bad climate policy, are traditionally underserved minority communities that have higher rates of asthma. It's played out in COVID-19 as exacerbated. And then when you look at places where, coal miners that have, provided us energy for years that have been able to, breathing black lung, and as coal mines are displaced, we need to make sure that we're diversifying to make sure that they have a job, and as well as women, like that have, that don't have the numbers that they should in this industry compared to other industries. So yeah, diversity is extremely important in the workforce. That's what our country looks like, but it's also an economic right to provide people ladders of opportunity to, make a living for their family. I'm proud to say that there's a lot of great work that's being done at SEIA, the Solar Energy Association. I sit on the Diversity Inclusion Task Force. We're focusing on a lot of different things. We're looking at how do we recruit more people, have better HR practices as an industry? How do we bring in diverse suppliers? So companies that are looking to start their businesses that are diverse or women-owned companies, as well as, how do you recruit more people? So there's a lot of different things that are being done, and it's top of the mind for, I'd say, pretty much most solar companies are really, really committed to taking action to diversify our industry. And we recognize that there's a lot of work to be done. So, and it's at all levels, entry-level positions, mid-level positions, C-suite level positions, and board positions. So, but I'm very optimistic from, what I'm seeing from, my fellow CEOs and, and what SEIA is doing to tackle this issue.
Yeah, I agree. We've done a lot of work, but there's certainly, quite a bit more work to be done. William, speaking of that, I've had the pleasure of meeting some of the folks that have gone through the Green Power program. What's your take on why we need these programs and these workforces to be more diverse?
Yeah, so diversity is an important value for the city, and with Green Power, it's been a bright spot. We've had 15 trainees over the past 5 years, and that's included 5 women and 11 people of color. And they've come from all backgrounds. Some people have prior construction experience. Some people, it's the first time they've used a drill. But by the end of the program, they're all able to help on every portion of the install. And it's great to be able to look back and see everything they've learned over the summer and everything they're capable of. Solar installation, work in solar is something that's open to everyone who's willing to learn new things and has a good work ethic. And the more people we have with different backgrounds in renewable energy, the more experiences and viewpoints we're going to get, and the better off we'll be as an industry and as a society.
Definitely. Ellen, I want to give you a chance to chime in here as well. What do you see happening at the technical college level about, diversifying workforce or I guess the students going into the workforce?
I just think it's such a great opportunity because this industry is growing so quickly to afford opportunities to everybody. And, if you look at an underserved community or a community that is, underemployed, to give opportunities for all of these jobs. I mean, when David was talking about 1,000 new jobs for this huge solar installation, I mean, that's an opportunity for everybody. And I think that it's an obvious match, for a community that has been underemployed to have employment opportunities. And, at the technical college level, it's the same thing. These programs are forming and growing quickly. And I think it's just a great moment in time for everybody to have a chance to get on the renewable energy train, so to speak.
I agree. Yeah, that's a very, very good point. I have one more question for you all, then I'm going to turn it over to the audience questions. And this is another reminder for folks that are in the audience to put your questions in either to the chat function or to the Q&A. And my last question is this, and that's, you've got the magic wand. How do you advance the renewable energy workforce? And I'm going to keep with Ellen. Ellen, what would you do if I gave you the magic wand for a day?
I think it's all about training, Sam. We have programs, everything from, the MREA offers Solar Training Academy, where people who are already in the workforce can go for several weekends and learn the basics of solar installation, all the way up into engineering programs that focus on renewable energy at the university level. I think it's all about people just learning what this is about and getting started with it. And, like I said, and I mean, I know I'm repeating myself over and over, but, this is the moment in time, and we've been waiting for this for a long time. And this is a revolution, and I think it's just going to grow at an amazing rate. And it's all about getting people excited about it and getting people to get the training. And like I said, that's what the MREA does. We provide education, and some of our basic training programs are things that somebody who works full time can do and learn about solar on the weekend, 3 or 4 weekends over the course of, a couple of months. And that can be life-changing. And then, of course, the technical college programs, there are, technical diplomas that take 8 or 9 months to complete. There are 2-year programs where, it's a full-out 2-year associate's degree. Many of those programs transfer into the university level. And as Gilbert said, there's marketing, there's design, this is a wide open field right now. And I think it's all about just getting people trained to do what they like and what they're good at.
Yeah, my grandfather was the first of his family to go to college, and I remember him always. He went to Duke and was an engineer there, and he always told me, always get more education. And I think that goes for really society as well. William, your turn. You have the magic wand. What are you doing for a day?
I think we just have to keep the momentum going, like we talked about earlier. I think there's a lot of interest in renewables, and the more mainstream it gets, the more interest there's going to be, and more people who know someone who's in the industry and want to continue in it. And I think some like legislation, government programs are going to do everything to help also. Like Illinois has aggressive renewable targets, which has really expanded their industry. And then like California has the new homes need solar, and anything that's going to help any government requirements are just going to help boost the industry even more and keep it going and keep that momentum chugging along.
Excellent. And of course, last but not least, Gilbert, William just talked about, government and programs and things like that. What about maybe in the private sector? If you had the magic wand, what would you do to increase the number of people going into the workforce, or just increase the workforce in general?
I would drive about 7 miles north to the U.S. Capitol and change the dialogue today. And on a positive note, something that we can all get behind, and pass a national clean energy standard to make sure that the industry that has been driving jobs for the last 10 years is poised to take us in the future with new energy infrastructure that's going to lead to more and more jobs. So that's what I would do.
That sounds like something you can do without the magic wand. I don't know, maybe. Okay, I'd like to turn.
I prefer to do it virtually, but,
for sure.
But I am hoping that there will be both smart federal and state policy, which which is understand this is it should not be a partisan issue. It should be something that we realize that these are good U.S. paying jobs that should reflect all citizens across the country to be able to rebound from COVID, building clean energy. So.
Absolutely. Okay, I'd like to turn it over now to some audience questions. We've gotten a few in now. I'm going to start with this one. This one is from Allison. Are there any programs in Wisconsin that are specifically focused on retraining for folks that have worked in the fossil fuel industries, such as employees from a coal plant that gets retired? I'm going to hand this to you, Ellen. Do you know of any such programs?
I don't. And I read the question and did a quick search, and I really don't know any specifically. I know that there are many programs, that can train for the solar industry or renewable energy, but not specific to people who are being retired from the coal industry.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have, we're not a coal heavy state, we're not a West Virginia or Wyoming, but I think the question does bring up a good point, and that is we do in Wisconsin still have several coal plants and other fossil fuel plants. Maybe this is a program that should be considered here in Wisconsin. William, what do you think about that? Or I guess maybe I should backtrack a little and say, do you know of any plans that exist, or programs, excuse me, that exist in Wisconsin for this?
I don't know of any, but I think it's a good idea. I mean, a lot of skills are transferable, that if you work in the trades, it's going to apply to solar. So I think solar is really open to anyone, and people who already have a lot of work in a field are going to have kind of a leg up. So that's going to help, but I think it'll be a good program to develop.
Let's go on to the next question here. We have one from Nancy, and that question is, what percentages of BIPOC folks and women are in the industry? Gilbert, I'm going to throw this question to you since you work with SIA. Do you know what the numbers are for that, maybe off the top of your head?
So don't correct me, I can give like a range. I think the last jobs report, it was between 7 and 8% for African Americans. I think it was in the low to mid teens for Hispanic workers, and which was more positive with women, which I know was above 20%, but I don't know the exact percentage, but happy to follow up. I can shoot that and put that in the chat in a few seconds.
Yeah, that'd be great. And that's nationally, correct?
Correct. That's national.
Okay. Ellen, do you know if you have any figures on this from Wisconsin, or maybe the people that come through the technical colleges, maybe if you have figures on that?
No, and I've tried to find figures on it. The best I can say is that nationally, it's about what Gilbert said. Although for women, from what I've been able to get from different organizations that do keep track of it, it's more like 5%. Definitely an underrepresented population in the energy industry. And although that's growing, I went through a renewable energy technical college at Northeast Wisconsin Technical School. I did a 2-year associate's degree a couple of years ago. And just at a grassroots level, I was amazed at how many young women were enrolled in that program. And so I think it's definitely growing, but it's got a long way to go.
For sure, yeah. So we have about time for maybe one more question. We'll try to get to all these questions maybe offline. I do want to mention, however, that coming up just in a few minutes at 2 o'clock, we actually are going to have one of our industry-led conversations. It is going to talk a little bit more about this. Ken Walls, who teaches here at Madison College, will be leading that discussion. So if you're interested in this topic, if we can't get to your question, which I know there are a lot of them that we're not going to be able to get to, certainly file on over to there. I'm sure he can maybe continue the conversation there. The last question I want to ask, and this is going to be for everybody here, this one came in from Scott, and that is, what are the most sought after kinds of skills that solar install companies are looking for right now to help them grow? Is the basic 4-weekend solar training enough, or is there a shortage of more skilled positions such as electricians? William, I'm going to give you first crack at this because you kind of set up, the solar installers by training these folks hands-on. So I guess I'm going to give you the question first. What are these skills that you think are sought after most?
Yeah, I think just knowledge on all parts of the system is very important. Electricians are kind of always needed anyway. We also hire just electricians for our maintenance and our building projects, and it's always a very competitive market. There's a lot of electricians needed, so I think people with electrical skills who can sign off on permits, make sure everything's up to code, are very important for solar also.
Ellen, how about you? When you see folks coming through the technical college system, what skills are they looking for, or what skills are you maybe trying to set them up with best?
As we've talked about before, the jobs are all across a gamut, Sam. And so obviously installer is where most people start. And that's where a lot of contractors need help. Most contractors this time of year are starting to look for hands for the spring season. So in that way, yes, a 4-weekend thing would be enough to get somebody up and running to learn the ins and outs of the basics of PV. But, as I said before, these colleges have all kinds of different ranges. And I think that the main thing is, where the person's interests are. We placed an intern recently with a solar company he's specifically doing design behind a desk. That young man probably will never be up on a roof. And so I think the jobs are really in all facets of the industry. And as Gilbert said, they can be, social media marketing, so the basic PV skills in terms of installation, those are things that can come pretty quickly for people. And then depending on their area of interest and, what sector of the industry they want to be a part of, that will determine what kind of training they get.
And Gilbert, I want to give you last word on this because you actually work in the industry. What are the kind of skills that you're looking for here to close us out?
Honestly, people that just have the passion to want to learn more. So for example, obviously you have solar, but how do you combine solar with storage, looking at like microgrids, distributed energy resources, electric vehicles. So people that just have a passion to get in and learn, there's training that's there to, to provide. So, whether it's business development person, engineer, someone that starts out in installation, just someone that really wants to learn and grow in their career. And so I would just say there's just, someone that's just well-rounded and has a passion. Just wanted to follow up briefly on the last question. So I was able to pull up the data from the last solar job census, which was in 2018. It was 26.3% women make up the solar workforce, 16.7% was Latino or Hispanics, and 7.6% African American.
That's great. I'm so impressed that you can come up with those numbers for us on the fly there. Thank you so much. Thank you to all of our panelists, I should say. This was just a great discussion. I want to thank Alliant Energy as well, of course, for sponsoring us today. And thank you all to all the attendees today that joined us. If you have any questions, please let us know either in the chat or we'll follow up with you later on. I'd also encourage you all to join, like I said, the industry conversation sessions that are set to begin here in about 10 or 15 minutes. There were some great discussions yesterday. I'm sure there's going to be some more today as well. So please go and head over there. All you have to do is click on the online agenda link to join in, and you should be transported to that conversation right away. We also have the pre-recorded portions of the summit too that I would certainly invite you to check out. That's on the home tab of the Event Hub page. There's the year in review, the Renewable Energy Awards, and the summit stories, also super uplifting too, if you want to get more uplifting stories about what real folks are doing out there in terms of renewable energy. And then finally, just want to do another plug to our sponsors. They are also represented in the virtual exhibitor space, so please head on over there to stop in and say hi. And please visit the event website, and you can click on the exhibitors and learn more about them. And then you can just click on, there's a tab there where you can visit those folks virtually. So thank you very much, and please enjoy the rest of the summit.
Sam.
Everyone, thank you.
Thanks.